which is where you look inside the stomach, or you can look inside the small bowel, or you can look inside the large intestine. And we'll be able to tell you there and then if what you are thinking you have is what you have. And if it's not, what is it? So seeking help is important. Okay?
Thank you, Dr. Austin Osameke. Seeking help is important. A moment ago, my colleague and I were reviewing the papers, and the poverty numbers indicating 133 million Nigerians. Some of the ideas that you experts are discussing now are way above the head of 133 million Nigerians, if not more. And we know that these tests that you are talking about are also not cheap. So let's try to also relate it to our environment and to our people. I know that this is not an area of expertise for Dr. Wada, but of course you are a practitioner and you live in this environment and you speak to general health issues. Since we are discussing the tract, stomach right down, some people will tell you that they had some stomach discomfort. They took bitter leaf and then took bitter leaf and after a while it was gone. Or at some point you have stomach upset. This very popular antacid, the Andrews liver salt. You just took Andrews liver salt and then after some time it became again like Mike. So these are the these are the realities that our people confront. They say, look, you just mix bitter leaf, squeeze it, just pluck some bitter leaf, wash it, squeeze, drink, and then you're on the go. So how do we reconcile this with that kind of approach to, if you like, self-medication, to what the experts are now drawing our attention to? First, Dr. Wada, and then we'll come to Omofoma and then Dr. Dietary.
Well, first of all, to say, look, I also saw the headlines, and some of us are incurable optimists, which means I see hope rather than despair. I think, there will be continued activities to try to elevate the educational and the economic standards of our people, and we're not alone as a country. Yes, but then poverty makes you do a lot of things that are actually harmful to your health. The fact that you have a stomach upset, and when we were kids, Andrews liver salt was the total cure, and you get over it and then you feel good. But if there's something still there, it shortens your life. Let me just use that word. And also to talk about those who maybe they ingested something and a whole family is wiped out. Sometimes it's the way the food is stored, some toxins have entered, and once you take them, they attack your nervous system or some other system, and you're gone, poisoned more or less. So again, this kind of educational session where we're highlighting food health and gastrointestinal health, we can't have enough of them, we must keep having. And then coming back to those who are classed as poor and may just be listening to this and saying, oh, I'm never going to benefit from this. My message is this: you will. Why? I'm very, very grateful that we have a healthcare situation in this country today, following the National Health Insurance Authority, that ultimately every Nigerian will be covered. So you never really have to have money in your pocket to go seek help. Am I good? Am I okay? We owe it to one another. We must be our brother's keeper. To me, that's what health insurance means. So I see hope in that light, but that hope is not today. And that's why I want to comment. Yes, these experts have come from far to join their counterpart at home. The major push is how they can bring their knowledge home at a much more affordable cost or price than if you were to go out of the country to seek the same quality of care. So relatively speaking, you get abroad back in your home country at a much, much lower cost, and can save your life because the expertise is such that they can detect things using the right environment, the right instruments that are not commonly detected here, that may even save a life. So I want to rest it there by saying I see hope in our difficulties and not despair. Nor can we afford to look with despair. We must find courage and hope to tackle our own issues. Thank you.
Dr. Mofomo. Because, I mean, he says that, yes, what you think is giving you temporary relief by ingesting, let's say, drinking bitter leaf is going to be probably a challenge to your health, to the individual's health, if not life. So, how do we frame this as a message to the audience? Because it's a common thing. I mean, in the past, when you used to see all kinds of signboards of native doctors who will cure all kinds of ailments, and I'm sure they still hawk those combinations. Now you have single doses of medicine. Some of them will even, and I mentioned antacid, like Sandro's liver said, I mentioned bitter leaf. Others will also tell you capsule. You know, what is in the capsule, they don't know, but tell us. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a very important point we try to make to our patients when we see them. A lot of people not necessarily cannot afford care, at least the care that is already available. But there's a lot of misconception, there's a lot of misinformation, and there's a lot of ignorance about the role of healthcare in prolonging and preserving life. So we tell people a lot that try your possible best. Another thing that people listen to people they shouldn't be listening to. They listen to people who have had ailments that they think is similar to theirs, and then it puts them off course. By the time they come to us, they are willing to spend the money you think they don't have to cure themselves of an ailment that is already advanced. It's already at a stage where anywhere you take them to in this world, it's not going to be curable. You can only treat to extend life a little bit, but you cannot cure them. So the first thing I'll say is, for those who can, especially for those who can afford, who necessarily do not come to seek the kind of quality and kind of care they need, should come to the centers, especially like ours or others in Abuja and all over the country, where the experts are available to look at you, look at what is wrong with you, and then determine what is the next step to make the diagnosis, and then to make treatments that will possibly be life-saving. So we do not lose hope. We continually advocate. Healthcare starts at the preventive level, and that is where our focus is. So it's not just to treat you when you have an advanced disease, it's to make the diagnosis when it's early, when you can afford the care, where you can cure yourself, and where your life can be extended for you to be around for yourself and for your family and for the community. So that's our message to Nigerians.
As a matter of fact, the point or the question about my colleague is quite germane to this conversation, you know, because when something happens to you, that means you have experience of that. I've seen some persons, close person, who has been to hospitals, swollen leg, after a time to go down, to come back again, swollen neck, and what have you. Spent time in the hospital. But then she decided to take what they call a detoxifier, which is a herbal medicine in liquid form, approved by NAFDAC. She took it for 3 months. She did a celebration of Thanksgiving not quite long ago. I don't know how that happens, but you know, if you're an observer, if you're watching the lady go to hospitals in and out and what have you, and return to this detoxifier and gets better, what do you want to believe? For instance, that is part of it. And this detoxifier is flying all over the place. And they said when it is untreatable by orthodox medicine, use this. And people have been giving testimony. I don't know how that happens, but that's what we get. On social media, the person will come out open to tell you, I am just so person, this happens to me. And he or she will give you details of all the transactions in the hospitals. Notable hospitals anyway. It's not just mushroom hospitals and all that. So that is why that question is germane, because people, you want to survive when you're down, and anything that can get you better, you feel it is the ultimate. That is what is going on, and you know there's no way you can stop these persons because they've been to hospitals and back and what have you. Now, what I want to ask is this: does this gastrointestinal disease caused by the kind of food that we take? If you say that some of them are common or prevalent in some parts of the world, does it mean that such occurs as a result of the type of food that we take? My grandfather lived up to 110, and he was eating cocoyam food. You know, he swallows cocoyam. He never ate. He never took a pounded yam. All right, and so on. And this is a man who had never been to hospital for whatever reason. You know, and when he passed on, no sickness, he just died. There are so many examples of such elsewhere, and so where do you start from? Is it because of what we eat, and how do we seek for that help when someone does not have the wherewithal to do that? I want to go to Dr. Terry.
Thank you so much, sir. So let me start from why does some people are more prevalent to some diseases than others? Like talking about GI health now, there are a few things that could contribute to some diseases. One is environmental. You know, the kind of environment you live, work, how clean it is, and matters a lot. Okay? And then another one, does food contribute it? Yes. How is the food processed? How is the food grown? Like in the United States, you know, we've come to where a lot of people are diving more into organic food. But then the question will be, and the reason is because they believe that this organic food are healthier, which is true. But how organic are those foods? Now, bring it back home. What are we eating? How is our food grown? Some food are grown. When I'm talking about food, I'm also talking about the animals that we eat, that we consume. How are they grown? Are they grown with natural products, or are they grown with hormones? Because all of that will now contribute how our body will process it. Now, another area that I'm going to look at is the genetics. You know, we from different part of the world kind of have some little different genetic makeup of our cells. Now, how does our cells process those things that we take in, both from breathing, both from eating? See, that's why your father will live for maybe 105 years, you said, and
110.
110. Yeah. And you said he ate cocoyam.
Cocoyam.
He didn't eat yam.
Cocoyam, he pounded for him.
Exactly.
Almost on daily basis.
Absolutely.
He didn't take a pounded yam. He didn't take cassava, like tapioca or something. I mean, he was so selective about what
Is that what you are eating now?
Now, the question is, are we going to condemn cassava and are we going to condemn yam? No, we cannot. Everything has to be in moderation. My problem with us Nigerians, like I grew up here, I went to school, primary school, secondary school in Enugu, and we ate vegetables all the time. Like we ate green, you know, my mom on Sundays, will have rice and she will have a whole vegetable beside it. I won't be crying.
Also went to Kenyatta Market or
Kenyatta Market, exactly, yes. And yeah, we lived in Enugu. So it was Kenyatta Market that was closer to us. And we'll be crying. We will be crying like we thought it was punishment giving us these vegetables. But that kept us healthy. So I said to Nigerians, go back. See the food that we're bringing from abroad and from like Dubai and South Africa, and they are not the healthiest for us. The healthiest food is that cocoyam that you mentioned. The healthiest food is that ugu and green and like those natural food that are grown. You know, we used to go to the village. I'm from Enugu, Ogu local government, Mako.
Okay, Mako, yeah.
Yes.
He's a chief from Enugu.
I don't Mako go.
I'm from Mako, yeah.
Okay.
So we used to go to the village, and I used to love to go to the farm with my grandmother. And I remember, as a matter of fact, whenever I visit, I love to go to those places. But the hills and all that, like the challenge, and you know. But I love to go there because then you see the natural oranges, the natural mangoes, like the natural fruit, and they taste like nothing that we see in North America. So I'll say to Nigerians, go back to where we started. You're healthier with those food that we used to eat. Because when you eat all these other foods that our body don't know, it messes up our genetics. It messes up our hormones. And then our thyroid is going to start to yell. Okay, now, one, we're not going for medical checkup. And because when we go to medical checkup, we can actually screen you and say, okay, this is what your thyroid hormone controls every other hormones on the body. We say, oh, this is what thyroid is doing. We need to know where it's coming from. And then we'll check GI, we'll check your kidneys, we'll check your livers. You know, we'll check every part. And then we can fix it. So the cause of some of this is, like that part of it, I forgot what it was. If you remind me, the other part of the question, if you remind me what it was, and I can answer it.
Oh, okay. Well, really, I was making reference to why people take decisions, to take any kind of medication that they feel would.
My stomach is aching. They are going to run. What is available? Andrew's liver salt. They take it. If it relieves you, you are fine. You feel like you're fine, right? And if, like the bitter leaf that you said, oh yeah, the area I wanted to mention is there have been medical research that are being done with things like bitter leaf. We actually see that it's very, very powerful. And if we look at history, how some orthodox medications were made, they were actually made from these natural products. So I wouldn't condemn them taking the bitter leaf, or taking the herbal, but how much of it are you taking? Is it approved? Has any research been done on it? How do we know when you're overdosing? See, those are the areas that we come in to say we cannot, because when it's not approved and when it's not purified, you can actually be poisoning your body too. So those are the areas that we come in and we say you need to get pure medical health.
Okay. All right, Dr. Oteri.
Add to that, because very often people get the impression that because you went abroad that you come from a rich family. So poverty is not something that is peculiar to Nigeria. Even when you're abroad, you need to look at their poverty levels from different regions. So everything we see at the big cities, you need to go to the hinterland and see that poverty is universal. I sympathize with our situation in Nigeria, which is why we're coming back quite often. But the fact that we're poor, including myself, because I don't consider myself rich, the fact that we are poor does not mean that we make poor decisions. And the important thing that we have to note is that, yes, if I can't afford to go to the hospital at this time and I want to try some remedies, over-the-counter remedies, what duration of time do you try this? Do you continue using Epsom salt forever for 1 year and it's not going away? You should know that this is not working. So the fact, again, that you're poor does not mean we make poor decisions, because poor decisions are not only for poor people. I mean, we have rich folks that can afford it but still don't go because they believe they can treat themselves at home. So that's number one. Number two, the use of, we call it over-the-counter medications, the capsule that you talked about, the medication that cured the swelling on the leg, that when the doctors can't cure it, we can cure it. It's important to know that you should watch and listen carefully to the label. If you read the label, it cures everything. And any drug that cures everything cures nothing.
That's the problem with that, yeah.
You have to be very careful about it. But can you get results from certain things that you do? Let's look at it this way. You do realize that a lot of drugs are manufactured from plants. So when your grandfather was eating the cocoyam, who knows what is in that cocoyam that was helping him? Were there the vitamins? How many of us get the prescribed dose of vitamins that we're supposed to get? So he may not have gone to the hospital, but he was replenishing his vitamin stores.
Right.
Okay? We don't know what chemicals are in that cocoyam if they've been studied. That
particular species.
Exactly. I mean, if you look at the history of drugs, let's go to like the Amazon basin. Even the hard drug, digoxin, comes from a plant. And that plant makes that chemical so that animals cannot eat it. It shocks your heart. And that's how they discovered that. So herbal medications are not, what I will condemn, but I will say be careful, read the label, try to seek help, show your doctor what you're taking so that we can advise you if you should continue taking it. A lot of them probably won't do anything, but they may just be supplements, and those supplements can help your digestive system, because remember, everything that you eat and absorb comes through the digestive system. So that's my addition to it. The important thing is the fact that we're poor should not make us make poor decisions.
Right.
If it's too long, seek help.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Nosameka. I know it appears to me that part of the way of also renaming our conversation is to say maintaining gastrointestinal health.
Correct.
All right, okay. I want to also again come back to our local environment so that our people have a better understanding. We have seen the floods, and annually now with the floods also come waterborne diseases, more particularly cholera. So everybody will know that cholera, that's with stooling and vomiting and fever and all that. So I want the experts to explain this. Cholera, diarrhea, gastroenteritis, and food poisoning. These are some of the terms that we are more familiar with. So what are the similarities? What are the differences? I take them again. Cholera, diarrhea, food poisoning, gastroenteritis. Beginning again with Dr.
Thank you very much. And that is so important because I talked about communicable diseases, and even in children, the main thing you will find about the digestive system is that once there's an infection in the digestive system, especially in the small intestine, you have diarrhea because it blocks the absorption of the fluid, and that's why you get dehydrated, and that's why you die. It's not because of just like the cholera or the virus that attacks you. It's the fact that it does block the absorption of water, and you need water in your body. So if you lose a large amount of water, you become weak, and eventually your systems will fail. Okay, so a lot of these communicable diseases, or these diseases that affect the digestive system producing diarrhea, all act in a similar way. It's very common, I hear people say, I have malaria, typhoid, and I wonder how the two combination.
After taking the malaria
and so that's something, but not to make light of it, it is important because they're not feeling better. That's why they are going, they have fevers, they've treated the malaria, it's not working, then it must be typhoid. And the only way you will know is if you do some either stool test or you do some blood test. That is why if you try and it's not working, seek help. But all those diseases you mentioned are going to produce diarrhea. And the simple way is just that you block the absorption of water. When you block the absorption of water, you block the absorption of salt also. And everything comes out. That's why you have those large volumes of bowel movements that you have. I won't go into the pathology of how that happens, but we've known and it's been studied that once you have something like cholera, the Vibrio cholera produces toxins that blocks the absorption of this water, and then you continue having diarrhea until you pass out.
All right. One aspect of what you explained now that's giving me concern is that of malaria, typhoid. When somebody says, look, I've been to hospital, I'm treating malaria and typhoid, I will keep wondering, why should the two attack it at the same time? We know that malaria is the cause of mosquitoes,
yes,
right? But typhoid could be something else. I mean, it could be dead. But I recall vividly during the reign of Dr. Olukare Samputi as the Minister of Health in Nigeria.
Yes.
I mean, he said something about typhoid fever. He was against the fact that typhoid fever existed then. He was saying that it's such a disease you get from Latin American areas. He did the proper explanation of typhoid then. And I had to go with him, because I have never had that before. I mean, I've never had typhoid before. Well, I have with malaria, and the only say I have typhoid, I said, go and be sure, because they take a lot of antibiotics, to fight typhoid. Okay, let's just by the way. Now, how life-threatening is gastrointestinal disease, Dr. Wada?
Thank you very much. I think one of the most life-threatening periods of our life is in childhood, and it's a novel idea. After your mom's milk, you start to ingest external food which may not be stored well or prepared well, and unfortunately you react to it the way Dr. Semeka has just explained, that there's inflammation in the wall, you cannot take water in to use for your body, and then so vomiting, diarrhea is a very common reason for childhood mortality, especially in the infant period, as you are trying to adjust to this new world, new environment. So pediatricians all over the country and even the sub-region are always meeting to understand what can be done, and that's why you hear of all this oral hydration for those who cannot go to hospital. But here to save the life is the mother who is bringing up the child needs to take the child to a hospital for the proper diagnosis of why. Is it even malaria? True malaria can cause gastroenteritis in a child, not to talk of viruses, not to talk of bacteria that are in their foods. So, and as you grow older, you get more used to the environment. It's less common, but equally dangerous. So, self-medication is one of the reasons why people get too weak by the time they get to the hospital, because you need 80% of us is water, clear water. So the more you lose, the less possible to reverse the trend of dying and getting permanent organ damage like your kidneys and so on. So that's my approach, that it's dangerous. You need to go early. You know, of course, prevention with how foods are kept, how foods are prepared, is critical to this. But also, if you're in trouble, people should also, go to the nearest kind of hospital, because all you need really is that water is replaced to keep you alive, for them to treat whatever is causing your gastroenteritis.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dr. Wada. I know that, yes, ORT is a common expression. It's said to be a first aid in the situation that you both have explained. So look, an infection blocks the small intestines from absorbing water and salt, and the system is just passing it out, and therefore you're losing, they also call it electrolytes, and after that dizziness sets in, and then the eyes start rolling. So when you say, look, ORT, you have the dosage, sugar, salt, and water, and then you shake it and begin to sit for a while. That's fine. But again, for our people, because the issue came up, I was happy that Dr. Semeka mentioned this. He said, look, I've never heard of malaria typhoid. But it's a common thing. You go to some of our clinics, I'm not saying hospitals, and we want to run a series of tests. Wider test sometimes is part of it. Wider, that's to say, testing for typhoid. It's there in the system. So, again, typhoid, gastroenteritis, food poisoning, cholera, and diarrhea. What are the symptoms, and what should be the response of the individual, or and even an untrained caregiver? I mean, if anyone in your family at night begins to experience this, and before you go to a professional center, what should you do? What are the things that you see that you should tick off and say, look, the alarm bells are ringing? Let's start again with Dr. Ighodalo Mofuma.
Okay, thank you very much once again. The key symptoms that someone would have if they have any of these infections of the gastrointestinal tract with diarrhea, which spans across bacterial infections, viral infections, and even some inflammatory conditions. Number one is almost all, if at all, will have diarrhea, passage of large amount of watery stool. So not just once, repeatedly, they keep passing watery stool. They come from 30 minutes, 45 minutes, they go to the toilet again, pass a large amount of watery stool. They come back 30 minutes again, they are back there. It may be associated usually with cramps. They have a lot of cramps in their tummy, which is usually because of the irritation of the small intestine. Some of them may also be vomiting at the same time. So you may be vomiting and they may be passing watery stool. Now, with some particular infections like typhoid, there may be passage of blood in stool, or sometimes also passage of mucus in the stool associated with the diarrhea. And then, if it's a bacterial infection like typhoid, there will also be fever. With typhoid particularly, they have a very terrible headache. So they have terrible headache associated with fever, passage of watery stool, which sometimes may be bloody, and passage of mucus in stool. So usually when that's why it's good to go to a clinician who will ask you what symptoms you are having, before maybe lab tests can be done, which include blood tests, which include stool tests. Before the results are out, based on your symptoms, they have an idea of what is causing the infection, and then begin, first of all, to resuscitate. The major reason you need to go to the hospital, apart from treating the cause of the diarrhea, is to prevent you from dying. If you lose all the fluid in your body, your blood is not circulating properly, your organs begin to die of lack of oxygen, and that's what usually causes death. So you need to be rehydrated as soon as possible. That's the first thing. Sometimes the body is able to clear the infection by itself even without treatment, but in cases where it is required, then specific treatments are given. So these are some of the things that we should watch out for. And then in situations like you mentioned about the recent flooding, where there's a breakdown of public infrastructure, there's lack of drinking water, people do not have access to water to drink water, or water to wash and to preserve their food items, then there is usually a community outbreak of these illnesses. But if not in this setting, then in places where we have low socioeconomic status, where we have a lot of poor people living in crowded conditions, and then hygiene is poor, they are prone to having all these kind of illnesses. So those are the people to watch out for when it comes to outbreak of diseases like this.
All right, thank you, Dr. Mofuma. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria and NTA Network Service, and of course our topic is the gastrointestinal diseases. Of course, we all eat, and if you do, of course, you should expect one or two disorders. And today we are discussing how to handle such disorders when they occur. We'll take a short break now. When we come back, we'll continue with the conversation.
We face mostly now are flashes of cowardly attacks from the rump of groups that have been routed in one location or the other, moving to another to give the false impression that they are still strong. Our ultimate goal is to eliminate them altogether and restore total and lasting peace over every inch of the Nigerian soil. Sounding tall, we take it home. We are determined to ensure that every inch of the Nigerian soil is safe. That determination is there. The order has been given. But we shall continue to protect the lives and property of Nigerians and foreigners in our midst. We shall continue to work for the peace of the nation and deter elements that constitute threats to the people. We shall bear the full powers of the government to secure every inch of our land. We shall not rest until peace is fully restored to Nigeria.
This message is brought to you from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Nigerians, elections are here again. Let us shun violence. Let us play the game according to the rules. Do not be a thug. Say no to violence. Let's rise and defeat violence, crime, and sabotage against the peace of our nation. Nigeria is the only country we have. We must do everything to keep it united. We must avoid any act that promotes hate and disintegration. Say no to separatist movement, terrorism, fake news, hate speech, religious bigotry, and any act that tends to divide us as a nation. Watch out for strange gatherings and suspicious movements. Restrict access to sensitive documents and data, the disclosure of which may damage national security. Educate your staff and family, particularly on measures to safeguard information and report security breaches. Apply relevant legal security guidelines to protect yourself and your neighbors. Due to misinformation and wrong choices, some idle persons resort to vices in their greed to get rich quick. They resort to kidnapping, killings for rituals, and other heinous crimes. Avoid wrong use of the social media. Before you broadcast that false message, think twice. Ask whether it will promote peace or violence. For safety at home, still be security conscious. Educate your household on safety tips. Report all suspicious movements and persons to the security agencies nearest to you. Be a good citizen. Be patriotic. To pass security information, please call 0813-222-2105, 0915-339-1309, 0908-837-3514, or send a mail to dsspr@dss.gov.ng. This message is from the Department of State Services, DSS.
To every politician, as the campaigns gain momentum and passions begin to rise, remember, the errors of your opponents do not make you a success. Do not run down your opponent. and inflame passions to violence between and among your supporters. What counts is what you plan to do for the electorate and how you intend to relieve the sufferings and bring succor. Nigeria is in dire need of patriotic leaders at all levels, leaders who will make national development their priority. Concentrate on telling the electorate what you intend to do when you get into office. Focus on making your vision clear to the electorate. Don't engage in verbal abuses, fake news or speeches. Keep dealing with issues that will bring progress. You win the hearts and minds of the people by being above board, by being civil, patriotic, and showing empathy. Let's join hands to make the 2023 elections peaceful. A message from the National Orientation Agency.
Dialogue, empathy, love, and unity. These are vital components of nation building.
For all to be well, we appeal that we should refrain from volatile, provocative, inciting messages and language.
Let's build and not destroy.
All right, we thank you for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria. And now let's continue the conversation. And I'd like to ask our guests whether gastrointestinal diseases can be treated at primary healthcare level. Is it a possibility? And of course, we would like to know also the most common gastrointestinal diseases in Nigeria. Okay. Let's have a talk.
Yes. Thank you very much. That is a very important question in the sense that before you get to the secondary or the tertiary centers, the primary healthcare centers should be able to handle diseases like this. Remember, we talked about this group of diseases causing water loss, electrolyte loss, as well as salt loss. If the patient is already vomiting, no matter how you try to do your ORT, it's going to be difficult because he's not keeping anything down. So at the healthcare centers, if they have the ability to at least put an IV line and give some infusion, that would help a lot. So we have to make sure that some of these health centers have the ability to do that. Okay, so that's one. The second thing that we also do is the fact that they're going to the healthcare centers, we can also have the opportunity to do some blood tests on them. Okay, the reason you want to do that is to see that is this patient already having organ failure. We'll check the kidney test especially if possible, and then refer to the appropriate place. But if you can set up an IV line, you're going to save that patient.
What's the IV line, please?
Okay, that's intravenous drip, what you call a drip here.
So you went to the hospital, they just put drip for the body that is.
Yes, because if you don't do it early, their veins collapse. And then it becomes very difficult for the nurse or the healthcare aide that is there to be able to find a vein to put that intravenous into. So as soon as they come in, if they're vomiting, please let's find that, put a drip, and let's just have that going on. If they're not vomiting, then replace orally as much as they're going, because what will happen is that if they're able to keep those down, especially the oral replacement therapy, they will still get some of the electrolytes back. And like Dr. Mofoma said, some of these diseases can be self-limiting. Okay, and of course, I'm hoping that at the healthcare centers there will be the ability of a physician to assess such a patient. But minor gastroenteritis, where the patient comes in there, they should have oral replacement therapy. The same thing happens at home. If your child or your teenager is having, diarrhea, give them oral replacement therapy. Even if it's just salt water, that would also help. But lots of fluids to tend to replace what you have.
Again, let's return to our domestic environment. We've been here, basically. But food handling at home and in public. Today is Friday. By weekend, I'm sure you would see a number of event centers full to the rafters. And they are serving, go and serve those people there. They haven't been served. The other people serve them. food is being passed around. You don't know who is serving, the point where it is coming from. People just, digging into the jollof rice and passing. Dr. Wada is laughing. Dr. Wada is laughing. Some persons come back from such parties and the next thing they are holding on to their tummy.
Yeah.
So what is our advice, you as experts, to caterers, to organizers, and to the guests at such crowded events with regard to food handling? Let's begin with Dr. Wada and then we'll come back again.
Thank you very much. I think you hit the nail on the head, because that preparatory stage before it gets into you is a critical stage. Who is the one that's going to handle the food? Have they been tested? Have they been certified free of, like, typhoid? Let me use that. Typhoid. Have they been tested like that? What kind of hand hygiene are they doing, or even personal hygiene? So I see that critical medical examination or medical test level to qualify to even handle the food and pass it on to the person. Second one is the environment where the food is being prepared, stored first and then prepared and all that. So how clean, how certified. So unfortunately, people who are to serve the public in large numbers are required by law in many civilized environments to have certification and reassessment of that environment to be sure that environmental hygiene, which is critical, is maintained. Some places, of course, licensed restaurants here are inspected by NAFDAC under that, but these makeshift event handlers, I'm not so sure to what extent NAFDAC is on top of that kind of game. So then, of course, some of the food are pre-prepared and stored because it's mass. You're not going to do it a la carte. In what conditions are they being stored? And when they are brought out of the storage, to what extent are they heated to kill any germs that might have passed on? So you can see there's a chain reaction. But the other end of the line is, I ate that food and I'm good, thank you very much. But he ate the same food and he's in trouble. It may also be my ability to deal with that chemical or infection pathogen that has come, sometimes toxins too. So the fact that all of us didn't go down sick from that event does not mean things were properly done, because our abilities to handle are different from person to person. So prevention, as we always say, is better than cure. My appeal, those who are to handle our foods on such occasions need minimum certification that they are not carrying any kind of bacteria on them that can be transmitted to the guests. The environment where it's done, clean enough, certified, even if it's temporarily, so that we know that there's good health coming out of that.
I'm sorry, what I'm saying is perfect, but you need to go where there are functions. In fact, I tell my friends, look, if you go to where food that is served in parties are prepared, you will not eat it. So you better don't even go there. I belong to a meeting sometime when I was sitting there. I mean, it's a street meeting, where we meet, to take care of ourselves, right? So I mean, it's turn by turn from one family to the other, and they got to one family, they try to impress us, with the local abacha and uba, whatever, and after that meal in the night, so I remember about we were lucky because what we would have been hearing is that social number of husbands, because all of us went running stomach. But
Wow.
two guys. Oh no! He didn't touch. They didn't react to that. So I asked one of them the next day. So what happened? How come? Because fortunately I didn't go to work because I was like I did party before now. So when he see me that I was like so he said that any time he eats outside his house, that he will take raw. I want to call it oil. What do you call it? Crude oil. Okay. Crude oil. That he will take a shot of crude oil. I don't know who gave him that idea, but he said, so his stomach becomes a refinery. He never had that problem. He didn't suffer, and all that. So that's it. I just want to look at it. Now, why do we have several worms?
Yes.
tapeworm, ringworm, and many more. Right.
The roundworm.
You know. So are these part of this gastrointestinal, disease? What role does worms play in the stomach? Because I learned that they're always there. Whether I like it or not, it will be. So, what is the nexus, between this worm attack with the gastrointestinal disease?
Okay. Yes, worms as well as other parasites can be actually ingested in food. So we are going back to the quality of food and the type of food. Now, for parasites like this, most of them will come from ingestion of animal products. Although you can get some from plants, but most of them from animal products. And so a lot of animals are intermediate hosts, that they carry parasites along part of their life cycle. And so when those animals are ingested, when they are poorly prepared, when they are not well cooked, you can take in the parasite or the early forms of those parasites. Now, when they get into the digestive tract, they now release their spores into the body. They can cause diseases in the gastrointestinal tract. They can actually, from the gastrointestinal tract, spread into other organs in the body, like the liver, for instance. And they can be there for years. So people carry them, chronic infestation with these parasites, and cause a lot of health problems. So the first line to prevent infestations or infections with parasites or worms, as is more widely known, is number one is food hygiene. How are the animals being reared? Under what conditions? How are they being fed? Are they being treated? If they are known to carry some disease, are they being treated by the veterinarians? And then, if, for instance, for whatever reason they get to the market and you buy such kind of products, how do you prepare them? We always advise that people should cook their animal products.
I'm not cutting short. Just for you to continue. Growing up, I learned about deworming.
Yes.
Right. After sometimes say deworm the child or something. Yes. You should do a regular practice. Because do human beings come with their own worms naturally, or is that something we took in from the animals, as you pointed out?
No, most of these infestations are acquired. You're not born with them. So it's not a routine. It's not a routine that everybody must be dewormed at particular times. However, if you know in the community that there's an outbreak of certain kind of worms, then you can give these deworming agents at community levels. However, most of the time we prescribe is when we are suspicious, or we found that or we've done some tests like stool tests, and we find out that you are carrying parasites, then worms are given. We do not advocate that you just deworm sporadic or gel to the entire population. It's not necessary. So you select those that are at risk, and then most of them medication, just one dose or 1 or 2 doses, and it's able to clear the worms from their system.
I would say this product is advertisement for many years. I don't know whether it's still in the market. We're talking about deworming. They used to advertise compound trade many years ago, or decades I should say, for treating worm infestation in children. But while we're talking about food hygiene, that's the handling of food. It's common knowledge, but I want the experts to also additionally speak to this. Handling of fruits, eating of fruits raw. I mean, it's a basic advice that, look, when you get a fruit, wash it thoroughly before eating. People tend to practice that, but I find an exception. When you are carrying kola nut and bitter kola, nobody washes the kola nut before eating. Once you just have it, you just break it, everybody breaks, then the next one, quacka. So what should be done in that case? What are the hazards? What are the gastrointestinal hazards without washing? Of course, you know the bitter kola is in a shell.
Yes.
It's in a shell. I don't imagine, but so how do you handle that? For instance, these are tropical fruits.
Well, let me take that question, because it's important that even these should be washed with the shell before you peel off the shell of the kola nut. Okay, and the reason for that is because we as humans shed eggs of these parasites in our stool. So let's take the food handler you talked about. one of the things they can do is to make sure that while you're preparing for food, or even if it's just serving kola nuts, you've just gone to the bathroom and you came out and you did not wash your hands. You can be rest assured that there will, because you wiped, there will be parasites, eggs, or early forms of it on your fingers and things like that. So hand hygiene is extremely important. Remember, even when COVID came, washing your hands, and it's not just washing and you leave. We're actually told abroad that you have to wash for 2 minutes.
By singing happy birthday to you.
Exactly. So COVID told us that, that you have to wash and all that.
I did. For us, we also have to be careful. I'm throwing this in so that you the experts, can amplify it or otherwise contradict it. It's not just sufficient, I'm giving this to carry on out, or I just touched something. Yeah. And you're there. I said, carry on, take.
Yes.
So I haven't know, because I don't know what is on this surface.
Exactly.
What my hand has touched, what I'm passing kola nut to it. But you say that, why you might say that there is anything in my hand?
So it's important that the hand hygiene be done. That's one. The second thing that's important also is the amount of the inoculum. What we call inoculum is the amount of the parasites that you're ingesting. Okay, because the first defense you have is your stomach, remember? The stomach is making acid. So if it's a life form, the stomach will probably burn that life form. But the eggs, the spores and things like that are not denatured in the stomach. So they now travel into the small intestine, and that's where they germinate.
No, well, it's only God that is saving us. We're only going to save yourself. When it comes to serving in public, like kola nut or garden eggs and all of that, perhaps they might have been washed, but the one will carry it from another kilometer, and nobody will. In fact, it's God saving us. My granddad would say,
"Can I add to that?"
Yes.
Yeah, so I want to add that this should be everybody's responsibility, from who is serving to who is eating. Everybody, there should be some sort of making it compulsory to have a bowl of water and soap around, or hand sanitizer. That way, I don't know how possible that would be. That's my recommendation. That's the educational part of it.
Environment. I mean, because you go to markets, you go to places where people eat and what have you.
How about we make it as an individual to just carry hand sanitizer in our purses?
Okay, that's impressive.
Because it's cheaper for us to prevent the disease before it occurs.
Perfect. One would say, look, if you want to eat kola nut or bitter kola, for instance, if you add the one they call alligator pepper, the one that also urge, and that one has the
it will kill off all the parasites.
I wanted to make a point though. The family that you went to, and that's where education is very important. Right. Education, because no family wants to be the one to make other husbands sick. So if they understand that they're going to be catering for this group of people, they should make special effort to say, well, we're going to prepare the food in a place that at least is hygienic. We're going to make sure that whoever is serving, wash your hands. If it's an Igbo family, kwakai, and things like that. It is very important that the families, that the public understands that these are diseases that can be prevented, completely prevented. Same thing with worms also. You can, prevent those.
What is the role of palm oil in easing intestinal or stomach disorder or discomfort? Well, someone just sent a message that her grandmother used to do that. If you have a stomach upset, she'll give you a little of palm oil, and of course the thing will subside, and you feel you're better.
Unless you go about play football.
Is this
you take too much palm oil?
Okay. So to speak to that particularly, I think palm oil it's one of the things we use to detoxify patients who are exposed to harmful, not just food that is infested with bacteria, but even toxic chemicals, because it tends to bind to those toxins within the gastrointestinal tract and prevent them from being absorbed into the system.
So how did those old people know this? They didn't go to school. You don't.
But there's also charcoal.
Yes,
there's also charcoal. Yes, to detoxify sort of the detoxification.
Yes.
All right. Very quickly, let's come to this, because we started off. Dr. Wada started off by saying, look, we have two Nigerians who trained here, went out and are now interested in coming back, brain gain. They also talked about brain circulation.
Yes.
Tell us something. How is this working out, Dr. Dietary?
Thank you so much. So we have a program that we have developed, and our visit is actually our first test ground for it, and it's called Network for Medical Skill Transfer to Africa, starting from Nigeria. So that's NEMSTA. So NEMSTA is actually, the goal is to be able to bring our diasporan specialists back home to Nigeria to transfer the skills that they have to our Nigerian physicians and to the medical institutions here as well. Okay. And we are expanding it to Africa as a whole.
All right, time is very outside at the moment. What I've said is very pertinent, and of course, Nigerian doctors here perform very well when they go out.
Absolutely.
I mean, they didn't be there. What's lacking here, in my understanding, are the facilities, equipment, and what have you, especially equipment, for diagnosis and prognosis, and and others.
And pay.
All right, now this point, I would like to conclude this edition of Good Morning Nigeria by appreciating Dr. Ibrahim Wada, founder and chief executive officer of NISA Medical Group. Thank you, Doc, for always being with us.
Thank you.
Whenever we call on you.
Thank you.
Dr. Osimo Seneka, gastroenterologist, oh God, specialist is from Charlotte, North Carolina, USA. You're welcome back home, and thank you for being here with us this morning. Dr. Beliano Terry, an Enugu product, internal medicine physician from Canada, but lives in Texas, USA. It's been wonderful having you this morning.
It's been awesome being here. Thank you. Thank you.
Product connected to Delta.
Dr. Yodalo Osenele Omofuma, we also like to appreciate you, the chief surgeon, NISA Medical Group. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you very much.
All right, now let's take some foreign tidbits before we call it a day.
Commuters in London. Democrats Nancy Pelosi, the first woman to wield the Speaker's gavel in the U.S. House of Representatives, said on Thursday that she will step down as party leader when Republicans take control of the chamber in January. The 82-year-old Pelosi's departure from party leadership marks the end of an era in Washington and comes after Republicans secured a slim House majority in last week's midterm elections. Democratic President Joe Biden hailed Pelosi as a fierce defender of democracy and the most consequential House Speaker in U.S. history. Former President Barack Obama also hailed the woman he called one of the most accomplished legislators in American history. Elected to Congress in 1987, Pelosi became Speaker in 2007, the first and so far only woman ever to hold the powerful post. Known for keeping a tight grip on party ranks, she presided over both impeachments of Trump during her second stint in the role. The Democratic Republic of Congo deployed 2 warplanes against advancing M23 militants on Thursday in the country's volatile east after a regional bloc called for rebels to disarm. Tanks and 2 fighter jets targeted rebel positions in the town of Kibumba at noon, said local news sources. The M23 fighters recently captured the town in North Kivu province, which lies just 20 kilometers north of Goma, a commercial hub of 1 million people. The retaliation by Congolese forces comes after the M23 has been pushing closer towards Goma, sparking fears of an attack on the city. Drawn mostly from Congolese Tutsis, the rebel group has recently captured swaths of territory across North Kivu. The advance has triggered a humanitarian crisis and a showdown with Rwanda, which the DRC accuses of backing the M23. Thousands of people marched against the M23 in protests held across the country on Thursday, including more than 15,000 in the capital Kinshasa. Commuters in London.
We apologize for that intrusion, but that's it for us on Good Morning Nigeria today, and indeed for the week. Enjoy your weekend and join us again on Monday, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning for a fresh package. Look after yourselves. I'm Kingston.